Welcome to the Art of Becoming Whole, where we explore the edges of the human experience, from the meditation cushion to the therapy room, and of course, beyond. I'm a co host, Justin. I am a psychotherapy grad student and counseling practicum student, also a hypnotist in the state of Texas.
And I'm Kevin Stansbury, LCSW. I'm licensed clinical social worker in California, and I'm an intuitive holistic psychotherapist. So, starting in the middle of a thought, that I was talking about why it's good to have your whole world fall apart. And but what I was thinking is like, I don't know, I had 14 years of work under my belt, of being in psychotherapy, of engaging in spiritual awakening practices and communities, meditating and psychedelics and energy work and all the things. And and I had experienced substantial, I'd say, substantial change in the quality of my life experience throughout that time. Going from a more, when I was younger, severely depressed and anxious state, which I could get into a whole thing about that. That, mold was certainly a part of that too for me. But um, but yeah, I went from being lost in that to feeling a lot more confident, to feeling a lot more of an inherent sense of worth, to being able to access these transcendent states and have some tastes of awakening, of like true nature, and to be able to pop into that relatively often. And so, over that period of time, there was significant difference, but I feel like the what I would say is really the core thing. It's definitely the core thing for me. I think it's the core thing for probably most people, if not every person, that, like, drilling down all the way to the I don't know what to call it, the thing that holds the conditioned identity in place. And it's a sense of fundamental wrongness, that something is fundamentally wrong with me. I'm broken. I need to be fixed. I've got, yeah, some sort of insurmountable problem. Other people aren't like this. That's also a part of it, usually. And yeah, I'm like uniquely fucked up, basically. uh, and it's like all of the stuff I did. Maybe it was. I've heard this analogy used a lot of like pruning the branches and flowers on a tree, but it's like endless pruning, and it does do something, and it makes some kind of progress, but the I wasn't getting at the trunk or the roots of the thing. And so it took, I think, all of that work really primed me. It gave me all of the resources and perspective and experiences, a lot of experiences that I needed to be able to navigate my world falling apart. So it's not like, I think it would be a good thing for everybody to have their world fall apart right now. Uh, but I do think, generally, totally just basing this on my experience, but I've seen it in other people too, and I've heard similar things, that that it is ultimately a good thing to get to some place. And it could look so many different ways for different people. in terms of what we get attached to as this is going to be my future. This is going to be my life. This is what I want my life to look like. And that could be a relationship or a career path or health or all of it or spirituality or whatever. And then something happens that is completely outside your control and you lose it. You lose the relationship, you lose the job, you lose your health, you lose people you love, and it shatters you. And because and you know, transparently, I am still picking up the pieces from that experience. This has been happening in the last like 2.5 years for me. And it feels like I built a house on a shoddy foundation. And so the whole thing fell apart and now I'm rebuilding from the foundation up. But it actually feels, at least in a meta way, maybe not on a moment to moment basis, but sometimes it feels good. It's like clearly this is a good thing. It's good that my whole world fell apart because it was based on lies.
Mm. Lies of conditioning, lies of particular frameworks, or um, yeah, what are the lies, and then what should we be building the foundation on?
I don't know, man. uh yeah, what are the lies? There's probably several, but I mean the main one is that one that I said. It's like that something is fundamentally wrong with me.
Right,
That's
right.
like the fundamental um ignorance or misperception that it seems like through our life experience, whether consciously or unconsciously, pretty much everybody develops that.
Yeah.
Which
So I
is an
guess,
uh,
yeah. Well, no, I guess I was just going the opposite. So if the lie is that there's something fundamentally wrong with us, then the better foundation, right, would be the truth of we are already whole. Uh, we are there's nothing wrong with us fundamentally at the core.
yeah, I it's like I agree with that, and it's like there is no us.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I could say either one of those I think are more or less true, that either there's nothing wrong with me and that's the new foundation upon which everything else is being built, or there is no me. And if there's no me, then there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing right or
That's fair
wrong
enough. Yeah.
about me.
Right. So it just is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think rightly so, this is a very confusing notion to say there is no me and who's saying it. Like you're looking at somebody apparently. So yeah, I mean it's like I don't get too bogged down in the transcendent language anymore. It's like sure there appears to be a me, like Kevin's a person, and I say things and do things, and there is a me, but I don't exist independently. That's like one of the core tenets of Buddhism is what do they call it? In, oh, it's like interdependent origination or something, or dependent origination. I'm totally blanking on what it is. I will look it up. But yeah, just the idea that nothing exists independently. And I mean, you could just take it down to uh, just looking at it like I'm every singular thing that we think is a singular thing is made up of smaller things. So like cells, I'm made up of, what is it, trillions of cells, I believe. Uh, and and then each cell is made up of component parts, and each one of those parts is made up of component parts. And you keep going and going and going, and then you get into the quantum realm where we don't understand anything. And so, but it seems to be some weird like amorphous goo of living material that's all interacting with itself and forming things, but it's all made of the same thing, kind of. I mean, we don't fully understand any of that, but that's the best that I can surmise through what I've heard of people who talk about quantum physics.
I'm not going to pretend to understand any of it. Yeah.
But the main point being that we at least understand enough to know that everything is made out of something else. And that there doesn't, as far as we know, there doesn't seem to be an end to that. It's like from the standpoint of our current science, we can only drill down so far and then we just get confused. Like what I have heard, which I seems true to me, is that anyone who actually understands quantum physics understands that we don't understand it.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's what I mean. Like that is the cap of our knowledge base. But as far as the experiential reality of oneness and non-dual consciousness, that we can actually experience it directly. That if you sit down long enough and meditate long enough, then everything starts to get loose. It's like these things that appear to be solid, they're not quite so solid, and everything's constantly changing. So the me, it's like, what is that thing? I forget the like our body completely replenishes the cells every
Yeah.
7 years or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's like, what am I? So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
total tangent going into the usual territory there, uh, but yeah, just that if there's no static me, there's no thing that just exists as a me that's a thing in and of itself, then there can't be anything wrong with it. There's
Can you
no
can
it.
you can you say that one more time?
Yeah, if there's no me, there's no static me, an unchanging thing that is myself, then there can't be anything wrong with it
Hmm.
because there's not like an it to for there to be something wrong with.
Because it's constantly changing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's completely dependent on everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean that's just like kind of popping into the cognitive about it, but the lived reality is more like if you weren't telling stories about what's happening about yourself, if you weren't telling stories about yourself, then would there be anything wrong?
It's a good question. Um, because wrong is relative, right? Um, who determines what wrong is? And it's very dependent on the systems in which you find yourself, cultural systems, family systems, school systems, whatever it might be, time
Mm,
period, all this stuff. So I remember, I guess I would consider this guy a mentor. One of my mentors posited a thought experiment. Is like if you grew up in this like windowless gray room, right? Where all your needs were met. Like you got water, you got food, but like you didn't know there was an outside world in this thought experiment. Would there be any, and like assuming that you were in good health and all that stuff, is there anything wrong? Like you technically would procrastinate, I guess, on some certain things, but what's wrong with that, right? Like, is there actually a problem? Unless you knew, maybe somebody installed a TV, then you start to learn about the outside world, and they have hot tubs and Ferraris and shit like that, and then now it's all there's comparison, right? Now there's something wrong. But if you didn't know, if you had no clue whatsoever, maybe there isn't a problem, right?
Yeah, and then, is that just putting your head in the sand or whatever?
Well, I mean, in this thought experiment, you've never had any contact with the outside world.
Uh,
I guess it's to say that if there was no comparison, if there was no story, right, um, then what makes the problem a problem if it even is a problem, right?
yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly. It was piggybacking off what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, I got it.
It is, yeah. Although I also want to push back at the same time, right? Because I do kind of hear this type of thinking and narrative in certain spaces, like in certain manifestation spaces, right? They'll be like, okay, there's no such thing as trauma because let's say you had no memories, and then would you even have a trauma? Would there even be a trauma if you just didn't remember anything? And I'm like, yeah, actually, there would be. Just because you forget it does not mean it hasn't been affecting your body in some way. It's stored in your nervous system in your body in some way. So part of me does want to push back and say, perhaps there is. Perhaps there is not necessarily a story, but there's just some kind of an energy, if you said, unconscious energy that could be problematic.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we've touched on it before in different ways, but this is where the distinction between a dualistic framework and a non-dualistic framework becomes important, like to truly understand it, because the misconception or what a lot of people do in spiritual awakening communities and who've had some taste of awakening is they'll go too far in the one direction to say, well, I mean, I was just saying it, but it's not exactly about the words. It's more like what do you really mean? So like if someone could say there are no problems, and so that means you don't have to do anything. And so I was just thinking about meditating outside, which I'll do here sometimes. And if I'm meditating close to sunset, then mosquitoes will start attacking me. And it's like, okay, well, if there are no problems, then I don't need to do anything about it, right? I'll just sit there and just get eaten up and maybe get contract some sort of mosquito-borne disease or something, and that would be fine. And it's like, no, that's not what I mean. I think that is what some people try to fool themselves into believing that they don't need to do anything. But it's not exactly that. It's like it's like it exists on this meta level that like ultimately in ultimate reality there is no problem. From the perspective of ultimate reality, I would say like ha through the eyes of the Christ or through God's eyes or from the perspective of the divine, however you want to say it, that I believe that we have access to this perspective. And And from that perspective, there is no problem. Nothing gets divided into problem and not problem. And things are still happening. Life unfolds. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. You could, if you've reached some deep level of realization and you just want to sit there forever, then you could do that. And maybe that's fine. There's no problem. But it's like I'm gonna I'm gonna try and swat these mosquitoes because I don't want to be bit all over.
That would be good.
But I think it's not even maybe it's not about not telling stories because you can't stop. I don't think that human beings are capable of stopping that meaning making machine that is our mind. It just keeps going. Um, I think, and I could be wrong about this. I'm not the most advanced meditator. Maybe the most advanced meditator uh, can. I know people who would say that you can at least temporarily completely silence it, and I've experienced that for short periods of time. But generally speaking, we've got a mind. The mind thinks. It tells stories. It makes meaning about things, and it's kind of helpful. Like we need that to be able to navigate life. So it's not so much about stopping the storytelling, just like in meditation. I think the way I approach it, it's not so much about stopping thought. It's more about disidentifying from it,
Right.
so that
Right.
I'm this thing, and then thought and stories happen in front of me, and I can see them happening. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm right on. Right on. I don't know if I have anything to add to that. Uh, no, no.
So to bring it back to earth a little bit, because when I talk about these things, sometimes I get excited and I just have fun talking about it. But I think maybe it also paints a picture that isn't quite an accurate reflection of my lived experience, which is, I was talking about my world falling apart, and it's not like I was in some perfect state of equanimity while that was happening, and I'm still not. It's like turbulent. It was the most turbulent thing that I've been through. And to have your identity fall apart, I don't think there's anything more turbulent than that. And if you don't have a good, a solid background, at least in some of these practices and skills and stuff, then that could lead to sort of psychosis.
Right. Yeah. It could lead to the world just remains fallen. Just it's fallen apart and it just stays there. Or worse, maybe some kind of self-harm or something. Yeah. So I guess your point is there needs to be some kind of foundation. And this is why uh, things like psychotherapy and meditation, engaging in different spiritual practices, having these different frameworks is so important. So that when we have um, perceived setbacks, hardships, world falling apart, um, that could actually be a springboard into creating a new world, into a new era, a new season of life, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and creating it, I'd say in a way that's much more in alignment with who you really are. I say after going on a huge spiel about how there's no me.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, again,
Yeah. On one level, there is no you, but on another level, there is a true, authentic you. Right. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's just a I think a paradoxical part of life that it's we've I mean, I say this all the time. We've talked about it. We have talked about it and we will keep talking about it. That for example, if you enter into a flow state, it's like you're forgetting yourself, but you're also simultaneously somehow more there.
Right. Right.
And that just is how it is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's just what happens. And so that's
Well,
kind of what I'm talking about.
yeah. Life is full of paradoxes. Your world falls apart, but it could also mean new life in a sense, right? A new world, to rebuild foundations.
Yeah.
So it depends on the perspectives, right? Or depends on the foundation as well.
Yeah, and you know, Adyashanti would talk about how after enlightenment, after awakening, uh, that one of the fundamental things that changes, or maybe it's the fundamental thing, is is that you no longer have a fixed position. And so that means like in terms like it could mean in terms of views about the world, views about things going on, but also your self-image, your view about yourself, your identity. Your identity is no longer fixed. You still have an identity, but it will continuously build up and then fall apart.
Interesting.
He didn't say exactly that last part. I kind of added that, but more or less the main point being that there's no longer a fixed thing. You're not identified with this thing that's going to keep changing. You're
Right.
identified with the unchanging awareness.
Awareness. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, because I had some level of experience with that as I'm going through my identity falling apart and I'm just like, crying on the ground and just in the deepest pain in my body, there's also some aspect of me that remained stable and just knowing that I'm not that, even though I feel like I am that. Like that is the experience is you're identified with it. You feel like it's you. But there's this other thing that can take a step back and it's watching the whole time, not caught up in it.
Right. So that's probably the one most important, um, maybe practice or framework or thread that's been throughout your entire life, right? That you are not this experience, the thought, the feeling, this identification, right? But you can create distance and be the observer. Okay. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and I think where the rubber really hits the road is when you're going through something that you're just completely fused with. You're completely identified with what's happening and it like I said, it feels like it's you falling apart and it hurts more than anything that you've ever been through. And it's like it's it's easier to experience oneness or witnessing awareness or whatever when everything's nice and calm and you're feeling good. But when you feel like everything that gave your life meaning is going away, then it's harder.
I can imagine. What do you think has been because you're still, rebuilding that and picking up some of those pieces. What do you think has been helping you thus far?
Mm. Let me think about that for a minute. But
Sure.
while I think about that, you f feel free to not go in this direction if you don't want to. But you said the other day that you kind of felt something similar, like you were going through something
Oh
similar.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make this a therapy session.
Uh-huh.
No, I think I just have some recurring patterns that I'm still continuing to address, you know. Um, it does feel like I do know the feeling of the world falling apart. Um, and I feel like it's happened a few times, right? Not just like once, which has been frustrating. I think that it does seem like there is a silver lining, right? So there is growth and there is progress. Um, but it's also very discouraging thinking about the times that my world has fallen apart and then realizing maybe it's, my foundation has never been fixed, perhaps. That some of these things, some of these patterns are still happening, right? That I've never fully picking up the pieces. Maybe the pieces were already, broken and have fallen to begin with. And maybe that was the issue. Um, so yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know how deep you want me to get into this. Um, I think every time, however, I will say this, right? Every time I perceive my world falling apart, there has been some good or some redemption in it. Um, I with my first real, well, okay. I want to say first real girlfriend, but I do count some of the people in the past as real girlfriends. But like a really serious relationship that I thought like she was the one, and we're definitely gonna get married and all that, right? Um, and that didn't work out. And this was in like a Christian community where uh, they believe that God speaks today, and so like you can hear the Holy Spirit, and God can tell prophecies and foretell things, right? Like in dreams and visions and things like that. So essentially, some of the prophetic voices I trusted were essentially implying that, oh, I see you two together. You guys are going to be doing ministry and blah, blah, blah. So you're traveling the world. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing because she's like my soulmate, right? So, like, this is exactly what I wanted. Of course, it did not turn out like that. And once those expectations were crushed, and obviously that she left me, right? Because uh, I didn't, at the core, I didn't feel good enough, right? I wasn't being the person I was supposed to be. And but I will say, and that broke me. That totally like just shattered everything. It shattered. At the same time, I like the business that I was trying to run. That totally just, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. I was very new to business, and so that just blew up. That failed. Um, I had to stop going to seminary because there was there was just too much going on. So yeah, it definitely felt like my world was falling apart. It had fallen apart. But I attribute that time, like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gone through the series of bridge of incidents to lead me to learn about non-duality, to learn about the Sedona method and emotional releasing and about the subconscious mind on an actual experiential level,
Mm.
right? And so I went through a series of abridged incidents to learn what I learned, to know what I know now. And it never would have happened if that breakup didn't happen. And there's other things as well, which I could get into if you want me to.
So it's the ability to, I don't know if you could do this as it was happening, but at least
Yeah.
later to reflect back on it and see that actually this was the catalyst for so much discovery and growth.
Absolutely. For deep, deep growth, transformation, discovery, all of it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually I might say that for most of my adult life that was probably the primary perspective way of framing things that served me because it was like I don't know, I was just struggling with a lot of different things for a long time and to be able to even in the midst of the struggling to have some sense because of my experience that okay, well this is probably going to lead to a lot more discovery and growth. So ultimately at the end of the day it's good. If it leads to discovery and growth, then it's good. And it seemed like I have some power there. You know, like I can choose to engage with it in a way that creates more discovery and growth,
Right.
or I can resist it and suffer and create more suffering.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if that is one of the factors that makes the difference between someone who experiences post-traumatic stress versus post-traumatic growth.
Mm.
I'm sure, I guess for anyone listening, right? So obviously there's a lot of talk about trauma in the psychological world and therapy world, and I think that's been really, really good because it wasn't really talked about or researched as much in the past, right? So opening that conversation has been good to address it. If you know what the problem is, you can better address it. Um, at the same time, I think there's because of social media and other factors, um, there has been perhaps an overemphasis at sometimes about trauma and talking about the problem versus there is a subset of people who, after something that we would consider traumatic, something like Hurricane Katrina or something else, right? There are a subset of people who don't experience the negative effects of trauma. Rather, they actually experience post-traumatic growth. So they come out of it saying, actually, I feel more grateful for life than ever. I feel more connected to my family and friends, and life has more meaning, whatever it is, that they actually come out of it even better than they were before. And the question is like, well, why? Or like, why is it that there are some people who experience post-traumatic stress and then like it really just wreaks havoc in their life? And then why do some people experience post-traumatic growth?
Mm.
Um, and that is a great question. What are the factors leading to that? And perhaps taking on this perspective is one of those things. Or your foundation in psychotherapy, in spiritual practices, awakening, non-dual realizations, meditation. That could be another contributing factor, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Uh yeah, I'm thinking about it. I mean, I don't think it's well, yeah, it's probably not just one thing. But definitely the that perspective helps a lot. Um, the perspective about even and this was true as my world was falling apart. I at this point in my life had already a pretty deep knowing that anytime this sort of thing happens, it leads to discovery and growth. And this is the deepest pain I've ever felt. So it's probably going to lead to the deepest discovery and growth.
Right.
And so it was kind of funny. It's like I'm in the middle of it hating that I'm going through it. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, this is probably what needs to happen. Like, this is probably good, uh, even though it's also awful. And so, yeah. And then over time, now where I'm at, it's like, well, I'm over the hump with the deepest pain of it, mostly. And now I'm just, I don't know, cleaning up different areas so that the foundation can be really sturdy. And but still, it still makes such a big difference because every single time, if I encounter resistance to pain, then I can remind myself, like, oh, this is actually, it's like it's a gift. There's something extremely valuable in it. It's not it's not just like a pointless it's not pointless suffering. So yeah, I think that the
Yeah.
perspective makes a huge difference. The other thing I was thinking is maybe something to do with the openness to and the willingness to feel. So if you go through something traumatic, if you have a high degree of willingness to feel everything associated with it, then you're still going to go through even these people you're talking about who report an increase in gratitude and meaning and connection with their family and all that stuff, that I'm sure that it was still difficult.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there
Yeah.
were a lot of feelings they had to go through, but there was like not they weren't getting stuck in them. It was more just letting them flow through and maybe a deeper acceptance of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So non-resistance, non-judgment of feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but I also just want to say that I don't think we necessarily have complete control over whether we fall into one group or the other, the post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic growth. Um, Sometimes, especially in really extreme circumstances, it's gonna start as post-traumatic stress, and you might have to like work through it. I feel it's important to say that because it's not, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
no there's no victim blaming going on here.
Yes. Yeah. No, I do agree with that. I think there is a trap with the victim blaming. Um, yeah, like sometimes, and this gets into what is a choice and is there actually free will provided all of the things that determine our genetic makeup, psychological makeup, our unconscious processes that are influencing our what we think of as conscious decisions, and maybe they're not so much. Um, yeah, well, I was going somewhere with that. I guess just yeah, just to say that we have unconscious responses to things, and I think it's unfair to put this burden on people to say, well, you have a choice and you can just consciously just do something different, right? You can control your feelings and all of that, to a degree, and that takes time and practice. But I think it's not so much you get to always choose how you respond. It's more so now that you have this unconscious reaction, and that's totally fine. That's a human thing. Um, Now you get to choose how you respond to your unconscious reaction,
Mm.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
So, uh, all that to say, um, no, we were talking about. our world falling apart. And I'm trying to think, is there anything more on that for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I never really answered your question, which was so I think you had said what do I find has been helpful
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
in this? I mean, we are talking about some of it, the different perspectives and the disidentification and all that. But we were talking on the phone the other day and we talked about something, and I think it really gets to the core. I mean, I love talking about non-duality and just all the things that we talk about. But I'd said this in a previous episode, and you were surprised that I said it, and then I was kind of arguing with myself anyway. We were talking about the unconscious and something about that I was saying if I had to choose one, spiritual awakening or or being aware of the unconscious and how it operates, that I would choose being aware of the unconscious and how it operates because I think that would serve the world more. Um, I don't have to choose one, which is good, and I don't think I don't think there's a point in separating them necessarily. But I'm making a point here, which is that at the core of everything, of all of these healing modalities and things that people do to heal or grow, um, or awaken, that ultimately I think it could be summed up by having it's just changing your relationship to feeling and being able to feel deeply and not get stuck in it, but just like that's the kind of relationship that you have to feeling. It's like feeling it deeply also means letting it flow, letting it go. You're just letting it move the way it moves. And that I think has been the biggest determining factor of the quality of the life that I'm starting to build now. Is that off recording I was talking about how when my world fell apart, it was like this barrier around my unconscious broke down. It fell away, and then now there's more of like a fluid access between, I guess, between my conscious and unconscious mind. And and really what that means is like I'm more in touch with feeling, and I'm learning more and more how to just let go and just be with it, and be in acceptance of whatever feelings are present, and allow each experience of each feeling to change me, and that there's I don't think there's anything more important than that.
Yeah. That sounds significant. Would you say allowing the feeling to change you is distinct from acceptance, or or perhaps it's a byproduct of acceptance?
I feel like byproduct is probably more accurate. And the funny thing is, which again it makes sense to me because there's no separation, that uh that how do I say that? Um so we talked about this a little bit previously, that when I think about acceptance, it's like I'm not doing the accepting. There's an aspect of my being that quote unquote does acceptance. Um I can I have some sort of participation in it consciously, but at the end of the day, it's like it's a letting go into this field of intelligence that just embraces everything. You with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I am. Where do you think that fits in, or where do you think the barrier, coming down, uh, letting this kind of flow from your conscious to the unconscious, where do you think that fits into what you were talking about here, or does it?
Yeah, so if I can try and describe this thing that I feel is impossible to describe, it's like I'm practicing opening up into um what do I want to call it? I often use word like a bunch of different words and then I say or whatever you want to call it. And it really doesn't matter to me what people call it, but what do I want to call it? I just want to call it like divine awareness. That I'm opening up into this divine awareness, and that divine awareness not being separate from anything fully embraces everything. And so it doesn't even need to try to do acceptance. It just is in an embrace of all of it. And so I'm opening up into this space. And then that I think relaxes my body and nervous system and makes me, I would say it makes my inner child or my emotional system feel held and supported and loved. And then there's like a gentle encouragement of feeling there that it's like that safety allows the flow to open, allows the faucet to open or whatever, and then the feeling starts to trickle out, and then maybe it turns even more and it gushes out. And yeah, and then the feeling is somehow changing me, going through the experience of just this allowing of the deeper feeling, which is usually it's like a deeply held hurt from the past that shapes my identity. And so as I'm feeling it, my identity is changing because it's like dislodging, it's moving that stuck emotional energy that once defined me. And then I'm starting to be less and less defined by it. And so then I change.
And
Does that make sense?
that's called shadow work. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And in all of that, also there's just the experience of the constantly changing nature of self. And that there's actually something really beneficial to being uh what was I saying that Adyashanti would say? Not not having a fixed position. That then you can actually lean into the change and maybe it can go faster. Maybe.
As you're talking, I'm getting like tiny little flashbacks to my mushroom experience
Hmm.
for some reason. I don't know why.
Tell me about it.
No, it's just like I just kind of had this sense here that it's very, very mild. It's just very like subtle, right? But I just um yeah, it's like we're in this virtual reality. That's what it felt like.
Hmm.
Like it's I'm trying to tap into it, so
Hmm.
uh Yeah, it's like we're in this weird virtual reality, the Matrix. I've been in the Matrix for a while, for a long time, you know, it's just that's kind of what the feeling was.
Mm. Yeah, there is I have a similar experience that I mean, I've heard it put different ways. I'm not sure which one I like the most, but just that, you know, we're all characters on a stage, or it's like I'm participating in this movie of my life that's unfolding, or maybe it's a video game and I'm the avatar, or you know, whatever. All of those don't quite do it for me. I don't know why, but I also just tend to hate the whole like this is a simulation thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it grinds my gears. Maybe it's just the way most people talk about it, like as if we're in a computer.
Okay, I see what you, yeah. But I mean, is there an analogy that you do like or a explanation that, you know, satisfies?
I mean, I like the idea that um that we we each have a soul, and that the soul engages in some form of planning prior to a life. At least there's like key choice points that get set up, and there's particular soul agreements that get set up, that like you're you know, the agreement is with another soul to have them play a particular role in your life so that you can learn a particular lesson, or something can unfold in a certain way. And so in that way, I mean, I guess it is kind of like an avatar situation, you know? It's like there's a an intelligence, there's a an intelligent energy that is choosing to forget what it is and get inserted into this. I guess it is a simulation.
Aha, okay.
God damn. Uh,
You can't escape it. You can't escape the simulation.
yeah. Uh, yeah, but it's not, to me, it's like so beyond any kind of robotic simulation, or like a even a video game. I mean, it's so insane what's happening here. And like we've touched on before, these reality bubbles, like every soul has its own reality generating matrix that's somehow feeding into this larger collective unfolding. And you know, and I don't understand it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do like that whole framing of like souls incarnating here. This is like Earth school sort of thing. I don't know why. Like, why, if a soul had access to infinite wisdom, which that is my assumption, then why would you need to learn? Why would you need to incarnate and learn
Right.
things?
Right. And that's where I'm like, that's where I kind of disagree, right? I think maybe we didn't. Maybe we didn't come to learn things. Maybe it was just experiencing, and learning is part of the experiencing.
Hmm. Perhaps.
Yeah. Because I agree. Like, why would you need to come here to learn things if you already had all the, you know, all the knowledge? Or
Hmm.
you're just gonna forget it all again or something. We just forgot it all, and then right, like that's the part of reincarnation that like doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, so like, what are you actually learning if you're gonna?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling something. I don't quite have the words for it. So, you know, this will sound a bit like an aside, but it connects. That I went to that Zen meditation group the other night, and the uh well, there was a Dharma talk, so the sensei was giving a talk after the meditation, and some of the people who were there were like and brand new to this place, but also just to like Zen, brand new to Zen. And so they had questions and they were asking some of these questions like, well, what does your lineage believe about reincarnation? Or yeah, some of these other things. And in Zen, or at least in this particular lineage of Zen, but I'd say it's probably true in general with Zen. Zen is about experience. It's about direct experience. It's not about beliefs. It's not about dogma. You don't believe anything that you can't directly experience for yourself. And so these teachers and one of the roshis at the retreat I went to said something similar. Basically, they're saying, I don't know. I don't know what happens when we die. Um, I don't know if there's reincarnation, and basically it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't affect how you live right now, which
Well,
you could argue with that, I guess.
yeah, I could. As a former Christian, when I was in Christianity, I mean, it meant the entire world to know whether or not if you're going to go to heaven or hell, and that would affect how you live now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, it's arguable, but the main point being it's about direct experience. But then you get into this weird gray area of like I have the direct experience of talking with my spirit guides, and then they tell me stuff about the nature of reality and incarnation and the other side and all of that. And so now what? What do we do with that?
yeah. See, this is where, and I'm going to push back. I don't know how much to trust that,
hmm
but then again, I don't know what is a trustworthy source. I'm sure I believe stuff that's not provable, right? Um, I'm trying to think. What do you do with that? Because how do we know? Let's just say they're trustworthy, right? They're like they have the best intentions.
hmm
Why do we think they're right though? You know, about the nature of reality.
Yeah, and well, and so what I would say is I think that like I believe that I have a soul. And why do I believe that? Well, to me it's I would call it a direct experience. It's like there's a deep resonance about it. It's just like with any truth, some of which I have verified directly, as far as like the truth of oneness, it's like a repeatable, verifiable thing to me. So and that it like rings like a bell throughout my whole being. It's just like it is self-evident. Truth is self-evident. And that's such an interesting concept. If truth is self-evident, it can be directly experienced and you just know it when you see it.
Hmm.
But then I have believed things that I thought were self-evidently true, but that weren't.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
so it's like basically I think it just depends on you. It's all up to you. It's all up to you. Do you want to trust the those self-evident truths in your own experience? And do you know how to question yourself well enough?
Yeah. And
And
that's where therapy comes in, but also philosophy. Uh,
yeah. Yeah, and I went through stuff with like the energetics and I've been through different paradigms where I was convinced of the truth of it, but later discovered that that was a dogmatic attachment that was skewing my perception.
Yeah.
and it's impossible for me to convey to someone else that um like, yeah, that was true about this thing, but that's not true about this thing. Like, this thing is actually self-evidently true, and I'm never gonna have that same experience of realizing that it was dogma. There's no way to confirm that.
Right.
But I always come back to, is the experience or realization of this truth practically applicable? Does it serve me? Does it help me navigate life better? Does it help me um, be more joyous and full of gratitude and be more of service and all of that? And if it does, I'd say that increases the probability that there's at least truth in it. Maybe the
Right.
thing is not absolutely true, but there's some kind of truth there.
Yeah. Yeah. In Christianity, we would have called that you know them by their fruits, right? So if it
Mhm.
bears love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, then it's of the spirit and it's true.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sort, kind of. Except when it comes to other religions. Those are demonic deceptions that mimic the true love of Christ.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I just said, that's like my mental conception of it. That's how I can justify, I guess, my belief in some of these things. But the most important thing is what I said earlier, that to me, it's like my whole being rings like a bell, and it's just in complete resonance with the reality of this thing. It's just like, yep, yes, yes, that's it. And it feels beyond the conscious mind.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
we could say unconscious or super conscious, but it's like, it's just everything in me is like, yep. And that's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Um, yeah.
I will say real quick for the skeptics out there that well, I don't remember if I talked about it on the podcast, but that I was very skeptical of more like psychic phenomena. When I was younger, I was really open to it, and then I closed down to it, and I was like, that all could be bullshit. And I was very much I was more strict in the I guess that Zen thing of like, it has to be a direct experience that is not filtered through the mind. Um, and so I was really skeptical about spirit guides and all that sort of stuff. And then I started to have these like wild experiences with it. And even after having really, really clear experiences of hearing a voice, which is a dangerous thing to say in in the psychotherapy world. But yeah, hearing some sort of voice or having a vision of something that served me and helped like heal something in me. Uh, I remained very skeptical of it for years, even as I was practicing channeling my spirit guides. I was also, a part of me was saying, I could just be fooling myself right now.
Right.
I
Right.
could mess up. And it's only recently, maybe in the last year or so, that I just decided to accept it. That this is a fixture of my experience, and that it seems like the more I lean into it, the clearer it gets, and the more I can see how actually I can step out of the way, and then I'm receiving information that it doesn't have anything to do with me filtering.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just where I am, and I don't think everyone needs to believe that. It doesn't, yeah, it's just just part of my experience.
Yeah. I would like to explore that at some point. And as you know, I'm really into manifestation, and that's really crazy stuff that I believe in as well. But yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
Um, well, we had talked about this other thing that maybe we would talk about.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, yeah, generally. And I think there's a way to tie it into everything we've been talking about, which is okay, so the main idea, yeah, we were going to talk about imposter syndrome, but what is imposter syndrome? It's like the story that gets told is who am I to be in this position as a healer, as a therapist when I've got all of this unhealed shit myself.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of problems going on myself. I'm still rebuilding the foundation of my world, you know? So who am I to be in this position?
Yep. That pretty much sums it up. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there are different angles in which you can approach imposter syndrome. And I think I was feeling a little bit this week as well. I felt like uh, I would say, oh God, and like there's a part of me that hesitates, right? It's like I feel I guess fear, I suppose. It's not fear, a hesitation, a resistance of saying this. And I know I just need to allow it, right? But I feel hesitation saying that I'm sure that a lot of the clients that have seen me, either present or past, have been more emotionally mature in certain areas or in
Mm.
many areas. However, and I mentioned this, I think, in a previous episode, I think they're coming to someone like me because I have a certain skill set. And I use the analogy of who is better at basketball? Is it Michael Jordan or his coach? Or is it Kobe Bryant or his coach? Or we can name whoever. Well, obviously, it's the people who are the big name professional basketball players, right? So, like, why are they needing a coach? Why are they hiring a coach if technically they're better? Well, because the coach actually has a certain skill set. And yes, obviously needs to know like fundamentals when it comes to basketball and all that jazz, but has a skill set to take a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan or a, whoever it is to the next level, right? And I think that analogy does hold in the therapy world relatively well. I say relatively because if you aren't working on your own stuff and there's a lot of countertransference, right? There's a lot of unfinished business, some unconscious material gets triggered in session, then yeah, it'll totally ruin the session. So there is a level of like you need to be doing your own work. You can't be like so um just so triggered, right, that you can't conduct the session properly. Right. So I think that's one way to approach it. I'm kind of doing a more cognitive, more intellectual thought experiment right here, which I think can help. Um, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, I like hearing your perspective because I think it challenges my some of my notions that which we had talked about in a previous episode, and you brought up that analogy with the coach. Um, and yeah, and I don't have a really good argument against it. I guess it's that sounds I can understand that, you know, like that I have a particular skill set that um, I can support someone with going deeper into their own experience, and it doesn't it doesn't require me to be perfect, like free of any sort of internal conflict myself. Um, Actually, I'd say the internal conflict I experience only helps me. And so maybe that's what I would add into the mix is that's like a different. So you presented the analogy of being a coach and having a particular skill set, but also just bringing in that I think people assume if I have internal conflict and I experience suffering, then that means there's something wrong with me, which is that fundamental lie that I was talking about earlier. And if you can instead view it as no, the your experience of internal conflict, the more you're aware of that, the more you can be of service because you're going to be able to support your clients with attending to their own internal conflict. And you don't have to have it completely resolved to do that. You can just, but it is helpful, I think, to have some level of experience, awareness, and skill with attending to your own internal conflict. Again,
Yes.
doesn't mean it has to be resolved, but just like that you at least know it's not bad.
Can you explain that further?
Yeah, well, I think the imposter syndrome, the core of it is I have problems. Problems are bad. I'm bad. And that means I'm not going to be a good therapist.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, but if problems aren't, what if they weren't bad? And what if just everybody had them, which they do? um, then, and what if every quote unquote problem that you have is fuel for your own growth and discovery? And that's true for you, and it's true for me, and it's true for every client ever that we ever see. Then there's nothing wrong with you having unresolved stuff that you might be able to actually have more empathy and more compassion and understanding of someone else's suffering because you're intimate with your own.
Right. Right.
If you're not judging it as wrong and trying to fight against it, then you can become more intimate with it in yourself.
Yeah. Fair enough. Um, I'm wondering, is there ever a time when imposter syndrome is merited?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, good question. I never thought about that.
Because if you really truly are like, yeah, just not competent, right? Not well trained or an emotional mess or all the above, right? Then I think it kind of does make sense why you might feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
But
There's
yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, you really got me thinking. I'm not sure where to draw the line.
Yeah. Well, because I do think obviously we're talking about originally are people who are trained, uh, who have experience, right? Who have a skill set, but they're still feeling like, who am I? I have issues, right? That means I'm not a good therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's common.
Yeah, and okay, so I don't know why I'm trying to be so careful. I'll just like say whatever I think. Um that I would say a big part of that is that most education in psychotherapy and psychology is crap, and that they're not teaching you how to be a good therapist. In many it's totally program dependent. I'm sure there are some good and even great programs out there. But more often than not, I hear the opposite. I hear that it was inadequate. It didn't actually prepare them for therapy. Um, they just, if they were lucky, their internship in the master's program was doing therapy, and so they got to be just thrust into it there, which I think you're experiencing to
Yeah.
some
Yeah, I'll
degree.
tell you all about it. Yeah.
And but if not, then you just go through your master's program, then you get your associate licensure, and then you get thrust into therapy. And and hopefully you have a good supervisor who can then guide you at that point. So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just talking to a friend that um, licensed she's licensed and she's been through the whole gamut of different supervisors. So she's had really bad ones. She's told me about the so yeah, even like the supervision is not reliable for training.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we've got more than ever. I don't know what the stats are, but I can only imagine there are more therapists than ever today. That's got to be right, right?
Yeah, it's so popular. Yeah.
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 And and so we've got more therapists than ever, and there's I have no idea how to measure it, but I just my sense of things is that 80% of programs are inadequate to train therapists. Uh, and and I'm hesitating a little bit, but maybe specifically social work programs also are lacking in the clinical aspect because they're trying to touch on so many different things, which it's a hard that's a hard thing to do, to structure a program that is so broad. Um, but yeah, and so you've got all of these therapists who are then experiencing imposter syndrome because the training they've received is inadequate, the education they've received is inadequate, and then they're being told, if they do receive some kind of training, they're being told, like, just do CBT, do CBT, do DBT, do ACT, whatever it is. It's like, okay, so now you're basing your whole practice on implementing the modality. Well, what do you do when the modality doesn't work?
That's a fair question. Learn another one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think that at the core that there is something about training and education that it's not your fault. Like, I'm talking to the therapist out there. It's not your fault if you experience imposter syndrome. There could be some like self-worth stuff that you need to work out, but but also the education system failed you, and maybe the mental health system in general failed you in terms of any sort of positions that that people can get in public mental health or whatever. And then in the public mental health world, that's where a lot of times you're being presented with CBT or like do evidence-based practices, and it's missing foundational components, which is how I want to describe it is just, what do you do when nothing works?
That's a great question. I don't go to your supervisor. That's the correct answer.
And And I'm questioning myself. I'm wondering if this is my own like superiority complex or whatever, of like, I no, I used to feel imposter syndrome. Um I still will feel it in couples therapy because I have way less experience with that. And I'm still like training and learning and trying to get educated in that. Um but But yeah, it's like I rarely feel like I don't know what to do. And if something's not working, then there's a lot of other things that I can try because I think that I have a framework that is, it's at least trying to encapsulate the whole being. It's trying to
Yeah.
address every level of being.
It's a flexible framework. Would you put it that way? And so
Yeah,
you're able to kind of maneuver and adapt. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I feel like I have that same, not exactly the same framework, but I have a flexible framework for my training that it has allowed me to kind of adapt. And then I have a handful of techniques in my back pocket that if all else fails, I'll use those things. Yeah.
yeah. And maybe a part of the flexibility is it's just like uh it's that whole understanding that the therapist is an agent of synchronicity that we talked about previously, that it's not all on you. And that I think that that really reinforces imposter syndrome if you think it's all on you and you're taking on too much responsibility for the well-being of your clients. There is a level of responsibility that we do have to take in this position, but there is a point where you're handing it back to them.
Yeah. And this is where I kind of get tripped up. Um, I asked a friend of mine, a hypnotist, I'm like, whose responsibility is it for a client result? Is it the practitioner or is it the client? And he was like, well, it's kind of both. It's both people's responsibility. It's like mixed. And I do think that I agree with that. Um, I guess I'm trying to figure out where the line is. I lean towards, and maybe this is why, I deal with imposter syndrome at times, that I lean towards it's the practitioner's fault. I don't even say fault. It's just it's their responsibility.
Mhm.
I lean towards that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you saying? 80/20?
Oh God. Maybe put a number on it. I don't know. That sounds about right. Yeah, maybe somewhere around there, give or take. Give or take 10.
So I want to say something else and then go back to that. That well, so my friend I had mentioned the way that he framed this question, the initial question about imposter syndrome was a little different. It was like, who am I to be encouraging people to move down this path when I know how hard it is and how much it requires, which is all of you for decades.
Right. Right. Right.
And so I just want to throw that into the mix and we'll get to it. But what you were just saying, it made me think of okay, so I did have a, maybe a lot of imposter syndrome in my earlier years of practice. I think to prior to getting my master's degree. So it was like when I was doing case management and some counseling stuff and whatnot. That uh, what changed it was when I had a client that I was really close to kill himself, and it really affected me. I mean, it just hit me super super hard. And the organization I was working at, their values at the time, it was very much about trying to undo these rigid boundaries that have been set up in the medical model of practitioner and client. And like the practitioner's the expert and the client's coming to you for help. And like these clear demarcations there, they were very much about just it was very much a humanistic approach of just approach everyone as an equal. And and so the boundaries got a little blurry sometimes because, we're going out into the community and hanging out with people, not as friends in our free time, like during work hours, going to the gym with someone, going to the beach with someone, and we're like doing interventions throughout, but still there's like a human to human relationship that that got formed. But anyway, so I was really close to this person, and and when he killed himself, I encountered how much responsibility I had been taking for his life. And I had a professor, it was the best professor in my program, my favorite one, who I went to during this time, and I was breaking down, um, and he was like, whatever you're doing, he was very blunt. And he was like, whatever you're doing, you got to stop, or else you're not going to make it in this field. And he wasn't very clear, but I understood what he was saying. At least it landed in me. It was like this thing of it's enmeshment, taking too much responsibility for the well-being of somebody else, for someone else's life. And that's what was happening. Enmeshment. And so then when that enmeshment is in place, which I also would say it's like a fixture of a sort of codependent relationship, codependent energy, then I remember how it would bring up anxiety in session. Somebody is really going through something and I don't know what to do or say. And then I start to get really anxious because I feel like it's my responsibility to solve this and I need to figure it out. But who does that serve, that reaction?
I mean, no one.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's like in a particular way, it is empathy. I would say it's like too much empathy. It's enmeshment is like a sort of exaggerated empathetic response because if you're enmeshed, you're not separate people. You are fused together. And so their emotions are your emotions. And that's not the most helpful position to be in as a therapist. You want to actually have your own self solidly separate from the person in front of you. And that's a tough line to walk, to be
Yeah.
able to open my heart and have empathy and feel. I do feel what other people feel. I allow myself to do that, to some degree, but that's it right there. To some degree. Well, what degree? To what degree can I do that while still maintaining my energetic boundary?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've actually been learning that lesson in practicum. Um, because I would just notice that every day I would go there and come back, my mind would just be baked.
Mm.
And I'm like, I didn't even do that much. But I was just sitting there listening, and I didn't realize what I was doing was unconsciously taking everyone's feelings. And so at the end of the day, I don't know how many feelings I was taking on, but I was just like I just couldn't function. And I thought, and part of me thought like, oh, crap, like maybe I'm not meant to be a therapist. The thought crossed my mind because I'm like, I can't even handle this. I mean, like the next day I would wake up and I would feel okay. And like I would be there because, it's like I feel like this is my purpose. I feel really alive, being in this energy and doing this work. But yeah, but at the end of the day, I was just like, what is happening? And then something that my supervisor just kind of said in passing when I was mentioning something, I guess, related. Um, she's like, "Oh, you're an empath," and I'm like, "Well, I don't know if I don't really like that word. I'm like, I'm an empath. Yeah, I don't really use that, but I'm like, yes, I have empathic tendencies, and then I don't know. I just that night I was just thinking more on it, and I'm like, I wonder maybe the reason why I feel so baked and I can't function is because maybe I'm taking on people's feelings, like. And I felt into it. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was happening. I mean, I knew I felt other people's feelings, but I didn't realize I was taking them on to the degree where, I'm just like being fried. I just thought I was like, oh, I just need to suck it up and I don't know. Anyways, moral of the story is don't be codependent, don't be enmeshed. And my friends started to my friends told me some cool techniques about like visualizing like an energy field of like mirrors and or like um imagining I have this like secret society cloak and I almost imagine like the Harry Potter invisibility cloak or something to kind of hide my energy and I've been doing that and I've been catching myself and honestly it's been helping a whole lot more.
Mm,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like certain energy practices uh around that of just it could yeah visualizations or just a felt sense of like this field this egg or circle bubble of energy that surrounds you and that you have control over what comes in, how much comes in, and you have control over what goes out and how much goes out, and this is yours, this is your space, this is your individuated self.
Love
And
that.
at the end of the day, because sometimes we're not I'm certainly not perfect at this and I still take stuff on. And so maybe either at the end of the day or between sessions, it can be helpful to engage in some sort of energy work. I'm a huge fan of Qigong and
Oh, I
just
didn't
like,
know that.
oh yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I've been practicing Qigong for many years. And to yeah, just like cleanse your energy field and release energies that don't belong to you out your feet and into the earth or whatever you want to do. I think
Yeah,
that's helpful.
that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like, where is the line? So the line is somewhere around my responsibility. How would I define my responsibility? How would you define your responsibility?
How would I? I think I'm responsible to meet my client where he or she is at emotionally, cognitively, whatever. Um, I think it's my responsibility to view them in the best possible light, to hold them in positive, have a positive, unconditional positive regard for them. It's my responsibility to continue to gain skills as a therapist. I think it's my responsibility to hold space. Uh, it's my responsibility to make suggestions, to lead the session, and to take it to where I think is more beneficial or therapeutically useful or clinically relevant. Um, so I don't know. I think I'm probably I'm responsible for a lot. I I think I'm responsible to do everything in my power to create change, short of force or manipulation.
That's good. Yeah, no force or manipulation. Uh, yeah, those are all good. it seems like a hard question to answer. There's probably more things too, I'm sure. If we keep talking about it, we could just keep listing things we're responsible for. But yeah, it's like so I would say I agree with basically all the things you said. My responsibility is to show up as much as possible to bring my whole self to the session, my whole presence, to to not have my attention be split as much as possible, to forget about me, to a great degree, not completely maybe, but to a lot, to forget about me for the duration of the session. Um, mm, I'm arguing with myself because I also use me in the session. So kind of like what we were talking about before I press record, uh that sometimes in the conversation it'll hit a spot in me, and then if I allow myself to go into that spot and feel something there, then it actually helps. It helps the client. Then it like maybe it brings up a different path to go on or something. So it's not completely forgetting about me, but decentering me. I am not the focus.
Right.
That's
Right. Right.
yeah. So yeah, so showing up fully, me not being the focus, being as present as I can. I'd say being as non-judgmental, compassionate, and empathetic as I can be while still maintaining my selfhood, my boundary. And then I want to say, this is where it gets spiritual for me. It's like trusting that the other person's being, the wisdom of their being, knows what to do, and that the wisdom of my being also knows what to do, and that these things can come together in a dance that is outside of my control, but requires me to show up fully for it. But as long as I show up fully, that dance takes place, and then I can trust that um, they will get what they need to get out of it, and then yeah, and then I leave it to them when the session's over. They're responsible for their life.
Fair. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm responsible for the guidance and meeting them where they're at and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And like for crafting this context that's safe and loving and healing, like a healing context. That's all my
Right.
responsibility.
Right.
But the second the session ends and they're out of it, then they're responsible for taking whatever happened in session, applying it to their life, and also they are responsible for whether they live or die.
Mm. Mm. Hmm.
And I feel like I said, that experience I had when I was younger, it that really helped to create that delineation there. It's like, okay, actually, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your life.
Right. Right.
However, gets a lot trickier if you're working with highly suicidal clients.
Right.
So,
Nuance. Yeah. To
yeah.
context. No.
uh,
But
in which case, I still have to say everyone is responsible for their own life, and I maybe with the exception being like people who don't have the cognitive capacity to take care of themselves or whatever, but everyone's responsible for their own life and their choice to continue living or not. And if you are working with highly suicidal clients, then then our responsibility is to try our best to promote safety. And there's a lot of things that this is where training is good. Like this is where the medical model really focused a lot on, is doing specific things or saying specific things to try to minimize the risk of somebody hurting themselves. So there is that. But yeah, so then, so that's also our responsibility to try our best to minimize harm, minimize risk of harm. But still, at the end of the day, they're going to leave the session, you're going to move on to the next client, and then they're responsible for their choices.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming back to the question that your friend posed,
Oh yeah.
that who am I to guide someone on this journey, knowing how difficult it's going to be and how much time, effort, energy, attention, that you have to devote to this, your entire being, your entire life. Who am I to do that?
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you said that the other day, like a light bulb went off. I'm like, that's actually kind of how I feel. Like you articulated something that I didn't even realize how to articulate, but yeah. I've been trained more in like these brief therapies, right? So, and I actually do like certain brief therapies. I do think for the right person in the right context, the right problem, I really do believe that you can create rapid change on certain things. Um, and I do think it's our responsibility as clinicians to apply the right type of therapy, for the right context. And so if there's something, it's like if someone had PTSD and all you did was talk therapy for, 2, 3 years, which would probably only make it worse. Well, it depends, but it wouldn't like really help. But that say something like EMDR, would clear it up theoretically in several sessions or a lot less sessions, right? Then I think it's our responsibility to be like, okay, if I'm trained in this, this is the appropriate thing. So I do believe that in certain contexts, all that said, certain contexts, certain problems can be resolved pretty rapidly. Not all problems, not all people. So why was I saying all that? There's a point here. There's a point where I was getting it. I totally forgot. Um, oh, because okay, we were talking about who am I to guide someone knowing that it's going to be so many things. It's just so much energy and time and attention. Um, because I've been training these brief therapies, I think that I've gotten this idea that like I need to help them in like 6 sessions or less here, right? And if I'm not, I don't I don't know. I don't feel like I'm doing my job. Like maybe there's something wrong. I don't know if I'm getting better at therapy. I don't know if I'm really helping them. Uh, and I don't want to open them up to this entire journey of you need to learn acceptance, like radical acceptance, and that's going to take first of all, me even explaining it and you understanding it at a cognitive intellectual level will probably take several sessions, if not a lot more than that. And then now you have to spend your entire life trying to attempting to understand it on a deep, experiential level. And there's gonna be layers and layers of your unconscious mind. And shoot, I don't want to like introduce all of that. What do I do? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's related. Yeah.
Yeah. So you, as you were talking, it made me think about, I was thinking about like shorter term therapies, and some of which have been shown through research and a lot of experience to be very effective. And I think this is an important distinction. And I don't remember if we made it previously in times where we were talking about what is therapy. I'm sure we touched on it a little bit, but just that there are different types of therapists. And I don't mean, I'm not talking about modalities necessarily. Well, What I mean is that I think you have depth therapists and then you have problem solving therapists. And if uh and there are modalities that go in either direction. Like some modalities are meant to be about solving a problem. And I'm thinking about ERP. Do you know ERP? Exposure and response prevention.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so apparently it's really, really helpful for OCD. And I have a friend who does it. And um yeah, and I know multiple people do it. And so it's like in that way, therapy, being a therapist can be like, I want to say like a job. It's like a job. Like you just go to your job and you apply these modalities, and it does, ideally it works. It helps the person. And then at the end of the day, you're done with work, and you go live your life or whatever. I would say that's not how it works for me. I would say I'm a depth therapist, and that necessitates that my whole life is about this.
Hmm.
It's not a
Hmm.
job that I
Hmm.
go to and then I stop. It's like this is my passion, and
Hmm.
it doesn't turn off. And I've committed to this path, not just being a therapist, but the path of healing, growth, transformation. That it's at a certain point, if you cross the line, if you cross the threshold that's there, then there's no going back. You enter into that realm where it becomes, I wouldn't say it's like everything about, well, I don't know. Everything is connected to it in my life. There's no separation. Like every single experience I have, even if it's just like me doing some dumb shit and having fun, that somehow that also connects into this path of healing, growth, and transformation. So it is a full being commitment. And And as we've talked about before, some people want that depth of transformation. They want to experience complete freedom from suffering, from the cycle of suffering, and complete spiritual awakening or whatever. And if you want that, um, then you have to be prepared to give up everything. And
Hmm.
yeah, and so I think that there's something about the experiences that we've had where, because we're so intimately familiar with how destructive this path can be in a particular way, in a world-ending sort of way, that we wouldn't recommend it lightly. I think that's true for you. I wouldn't recommend it lightly, that's for sure.
Right. I'm trying to gather and articulate my thoughts here. We don't recommend it lightly, but we do see clients or will see clients that perhaps that might be introduced to that path through you.
Yeah.
So maybe if I come back to the question, because I'm having trouble articulating my thoughts. Who am I to guide someone knowing that the amount of turmoil and commitment this healing, growth, transformation journey will take? It's an interesting question. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's almost like there's two questions in one.
Mm.
Perhaps it's saying, not as I'm reflecting, perhaps this person is saying that if I introduce people to this path, I am doing something wrong, and therefore I am not worthy. I don't know if that's the logical path there, or is it saying that um, I'm unworthy and therefore I can't introduce someone to this path that is difficult? Or maybe there's some kind of feedback thing here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be different for different people, but I think the way I read it is like it's a question of responsibility. So it's like who who am I to introduce someone to this path? It's like then am I responsible for all of the hardships that they will face? Is there
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
some sort of guilt or
Yeah.
shame that I will carry for that?
Yeah. Um, Actually, I do think about this because maybe I'll share this. We talked about our worlds falling apart, and so part two of world falling apart for me was I was on this path. I was learning the Sedona method, and it was great. And I started to not be less numb. I started to be less numb. I started to get in my body, and all this unconscious material came out. And as that was happening, weird shit happened. Right? Like my body would move all on its own. And part of me thought, oh my God, am I demon possessed? This is really weird. But I concluded that no, this is my unconscious mind. This is unconscious material coming out. And it's manifesting in this weird somatic way. Um, but I was getting coach, I was coming out of my depression, and I was actually getting into the vibration of courage and acceptance. Not all the time, but for the most part, I think I was in that frequency. And so I was taking more action. Things were showing up more in my life. I was feeling more optimistic, right? This is right like before COVID hit. And then COVID hits. Obviously, that's a scary thing. Lots of change happens. I hire a new coach who can take people into these bliss states. Now, I didn't know that that's what he did. Uh, it wasn't quite advertised like that, but I trusted him because he was my coach's coach, essentially, right? But yeah, the coaching became very spiritual, which was good and bad. And he certainly had a gift of bringing people into bliss states. He really truly did have a gift. Now, he was also very narcissistic. He called himself a guru. He had his own unresolved shadow to be resolved.
Mm.
Nevertheless, he did have a gift. And he would take me into these bliss states. And I remember almost like awakening some very deep, like heart centered intuition and this mushy gushy like love for the world. And it was just like this crazy bliss that would just I would experience until I didn't. Until things got worse and worse and my heart closed. And as much bliss I experienced was as much pain that I was in. And then like everything got like way worse and like the releasing stuff was not working at all. Um yeah, and so it was just like I'm back at square one, if not negative square one.
Mm.
Like I'm worse than I was before, and much more pain and depression and all this stuff than before. Um, I say all of that because crap, knowing what I know now, would I put myself on that path? I don't know. If I knew that it was going to be so freaking painful, um, I don't know. And so sometimes I wonder, obviously this what happened to me is a rarity. Okay, I don't want to say that like somehow people will experience this. Um, and I told you kind of off the record, my theory about why this happened is prematurely awakened Kundalini, this like bliss energy, whatever it is, and I couldn't actually sustain it in a healthy way because I didn't have the requisite shadow work foundation to actually sustain this, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I do acknowledge this is a rarity, but then there is some part of me that feels like, crap, if I tell people to do this, this, and that, and maybe like open their heart or something, maybe this might happen to them, and I would feel just so terrible that maybe I bypass something, like I had them bypass something, and it awakened something in them, and crap, like I should have known better, and you know, so it does cross my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean you're a good case study for that.
yeah, thank you.
And well, I take it you have you said you felt like you were at even negative square one or
Yeah.
and so it was a really difficult position to be in, but you have since worked your way out of it and somehow found the benefit in the
Yeah, I, and this is where like I'm also still picking up the pieces, right? So I am working my way through it, and there have been many gains and many positive things, and I'm learning and growing and transforming as time goes on, day by day, right? It still does affect me greatly, but it used to be way worse, in different ways. It's changed over time a little bit, uh, but yes, I'm thankful for the things that I found out. So it really forced me to look for a good therapist, or at least a good enough therapist, right? Um, it's like the good enough mother. Um, and that opened me up to more of the world of therapy, that opened me up to internal family systems, and it explained a lot of what was happening to me. That uh, the manifestation sucked, right? In my body, it was a lot of pain and jerking and unconscious movements, and I'll still experience that. But having the framework of understanding, oh, this is just how my parts of me, my different parts, my inner child or protector parts or firefighters or whatever it is, managers, all these different parts are trying to get my attention in the best way they know how. So it gave me a framework to work through all that crap. So I'm very thankful for that. And obviously thankful for the things I learned afterwards, right? Because I became really dogmatic about internal family systems. Like, internal family systems is the only way. Like, yeah, I got to tell everyone about internal family systems. And then eventually I chilled out, and, you know, there are other frameworks and modalities that can work just as well. And not everyone, and, and IFS is not everyone's cup of tea. I understand that. So,
yeah. And I don't you said something like you're unique or like not people shouldn't expect that this is going to happen to
yeah,
them.
yeah, this is a rarity. I believe this is what what is called meditation induced trauma. I'm pretty sure that would be the case. Yeah, some people, obviously, I think by and large, for the majority of people, meditation is a plus. It, I think the evidence supports that. I do think for a certain subset of people, and we don't know exactly why, right? But they do experience negative effects. Uh, my guess is that there's unconscious material coming out finally, and it just kind of came out in a way that was obviously not very healthy, or just something happened where they bypassed something, and you know they had some negative effects from that.
Yeah, it's like a process that is not titrated, you're just opening up the dam.
Yeah, yeah, Yeah.
and then that can actually cause harm.
Right. Right.
And yeah, while I would mainly agree with you that it's kind of a rarity, I think it is maybe more common than ever, because of, I'd say mainly because of the internet. But more and more people are getting interested in spiritual awakening type stuff, and then they're being exposed to particular gurus who might have a really powerful transmission, and they might have experiences like this, or also the whole world of psychedelic healing. There's a similar phenomenon there as well, as far as uh, people saying this is just a life-changing tool, and you know nothing can go wrong or something. But then you go and you do ayahuasca or ibogaine, these some of the most powerful psychedelics in the world, and then it opens up too much too fast.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's a thing.
Yes, it is. Um, I didn't mean to take this conversation in this different direction. Um, but I suppose that there do need to be, I don't know, safety precautions or guardrails when it comes to spiritual awakening, perhaps.
Yeah. And it all of this applies to the question,
Yeah.
um in that, yeah, who am I to take people down this path? Well, yeah, I think that for you and I who've had, I also have had experiences where, it wasn't quite the same, but it was like a huge shift happened immediately. And then that opened me up to a lot of other stuff. Like, like it kind of opened the dam sort of thing. When I had, it wasn't my first spiritual awakening experience, but what I consider to be the first most powerful one, I guess. Um, when I think about when my spiritual awakening started, I often choose this particular experience, even though I had some before that. But what happened was my energy body came online, uh, all at once, and I just woke up and I felt like my body was on fire, and I was really confused, and it was like the emotional energy was extremely intense, and it was like a new level of feeling that I wasn't quite prepared to deal with. And lucky for me, the next day, it was a synchronistic thing, but the next day I had been invited by a friend to go see these spiritual teachers, and they were talking about spiritual awakening, and the way they talked about it really put it in a context for me where it was like, oh, I'm not going crazy. Cool. Like this is a real thing that happens to people.
Wow. Was it random? Like it just you woke up one day and it just happened?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'd been engaging in meditation practices, and I'd already been into Adyashanti's work and Osho and Thich Nhat Hanh and like Zen stuff. So I was already like on the path there, but yeah, there was like nothing that really prompted it. It was just for whatever reason one day that happened.
Wow. Wow. You know, it's really fascinating not to like take it off track. So I'll circle back, I promise. But it's interesting because, I've said that I was a charismatic Christian, and these kinds of experiences were more common.
Mm,
And there have been stories of people that they recount having like they felt like their body was on fire, or they like felt like this electricity just like surging through them for like hours and hours. And
mm,
of course they use different language for that. They would use they were like slain in the spirit, or this was a baptism of fire, or whatever. They use more Christian language. But it sounds similar to what you experienced.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard so many stories of people who've had similar experiences, either like that or like yours, where it was like a what do they call that, Shakti pot, like a transmission that you receive from a guru, and it just like changes your life in a second, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's what I experienced.
Hmm.
Yeah, it might have been like a lot of little things. So like I think there's a Christian version of Shaktipat, right? That I probably experienced before, and we called it holy laughter. I don't know if you ever seen that where people they just laugh uncontrollably.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So little did I know that that's part of some Eastern tradition, right? But in the circles that I was in, right, it was like, oh, this is like holy laughter from the Holy Spirit, right? This is a move of God. It's a revival. This is yeah, yeah. So I actually did experience that once. Someone laid hands on me. Oh, we call it a fire tunnel, actually. So
Hmm.
so you would go through, there would be like the ministers or whoever volunteers, whoever is like more anointed, they'll pray for you. But there'll be like a row of two lines, right, of row, and then you would go through that, and people would lay hands and speak in tongues and prophesy over you and blah 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 and put anointing and whatever, and like there would be like a bunch of energy, right, in this, and I actually did end up doing a bit of holy laughter, which is really interesting. And I think that probably they probably did transmit something. There was some kind of trans energy transmission, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So I think that probably helped or hurt. I don't know. Yeah, I think that there was already a seed planted, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
So here's why this isn't much of a problem for me, this whole thing. Uh, well, I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking about Zen as usual, because I'm just thinking about these Roshis that I met and this new sensei that I met, and their energy is so grounded. It's like big, expansive. It's a opening. So there is a transmission there, but it's so I want to call it like real and grounded, uh, that it doesn't feel like unsafe or like it could possibly wake someone up too much or something. Um, I don't know if that's totally true or not, but that's just kind of how I feel. And I would say, I certainly believe this, that I think, well, everyone has a transmission. Your presence is being transmitted. It's impacting whoever you're interacting with. And maybe particularly as a therapist, where you're creating the context of the session and the relationship, and that it's like the session revolves around your transmission in a particular way, even if you're just
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
You're showing, at the very least, you're showing someone that it's okay to be them. Like just by being there for them, listening, not judging them, even just that, it's a super powerful thing. And so, but there's like an energetic transmission too, where that people I think can feel. It's like they actually feel, um, they feel it. They feel it being transmitted. Like, oh, I th this is probably not conscious, but it's like, oh, um, oh, this is a way that I could be. Like, this is a way that I could relate to myself. That's kind of part of the transmission, is like if I'm viewing them a particular way and relating to them a particular way, then it starts to open them up to the possibility that they could be that way with themselves.
Right.
Does this make
Right.
sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And, this is where my belief comes in that also my relationship with myself is a transmission. So, the more that I'm in a loving relationship with my own experience, that also acts as a transmission to not just demonstrate, but something that they can feel like, oh, it's possible to be like this. And that's also how I feel with these Zen people. To me, that's the effect they have on me. I'm like, oh yeah, like I know, like I've already tasted that, and I know that that's possible for me to be that open, loving, grounded, centered in the truth of things, that's possible. But it's gentle. That's what I'm getting at. Is like I feel like and I don't know about your old guru and some of these other gurus. I don't know if it's a conscious choice that they're making to transmit so powerfully, and like they're trying to change people. Uh, but maybe that has an effect too, because I'm not viewing the person in front of me as in need of changing. And that's part of my transmission. And so I think it's like gentle. And so I'm always in discernment about I'm so curious with every person I meet. I'm like, how far are you gonna want to go? And then I just like gently walk them, and then we hit certain spots, and maybe they're like, I don't want to go further than that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I really like the question, this whole question we're exploring. But yeah, I guess I just view it as like I'm not going to force anyone to do anything. Uh, and I'm not viewing them. I don't believe what they believe. I don't believe that there's something wrong with them. So they don't need to do anything. But I will show them the options that are available. And then it's like, okay, that whole uh how deep, or what is it? I'll show you the how deep the rabbit hole goes or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you want to see it, we can go. But that's going to be their choice.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, before you say anything, I will say that I did think about this too, that it's hard for me to say how much of a choice I had in the matter.
In terms of,
In terms of going down this path, like I'm here now, but what happened at the beginning? It was I was severely depressed and anxious. I didn't want to be severely depressed and anxious. And then pretty soon after I started therapy, I started getting interested in Zen. And it was like, I did have an intuitive knowing that what I was learning about Zen, that they were pointing to a really deep truth about reality. And I wanted to know it. I wanted to experience it. And so I guess it was a choice, but I also like, I don't know, it just kind of happened.
same for me.
So it wasn't so conscious of like, okay, I know what's in store for me and I'm okay. I'll do it. Here we go. No, it was just I just wanted to feel better, and then I also wanted to know the truth about reality. and was curious enough about it. And that's it. That's it. And then the rest of
Oh,
it was just like dominoes falling. So maybe that's it too. I'm like, I don't claim any responsibility for that. It's it's like I will show you the options, and if the dominoes start to fall, then that's your being. That is the wisdom of your being doing it.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
And because I've been through a lot of stuff, I could act as a decent guide as the dominoes fall, and maybe sometimes they fall too fast, and then you get disoriented, and I'm familiar with that.
Fair. Okay. Maybe your friend will listen to this part of the episode
Yeah,
and share his thoughts.
you will.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So let's see. Is there anything else to say? Imposter syndrome. Um,
Well, yeah, on a imposter syndrome itself,
yeah.
it's not going to be anything new or revolutionary here. I'm just kind of repeating what some of the common knowledge I feel like is out
Hmm.
there, but it is rooted in some deeper, right, unconscious process of usually of low self-worth and usually that's tied to developmental trauma, not always. So there sometimes needs to be a little bit more emotional work that needs to be done and unconscious material to be transmuted. So, yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Right. And that sparked something that you said an hour ago or whatever. That is imposter syndrome warranted sometimes? I don't know if we finished talking about that. Uh,
Hmm.
that yeah, I like the question. It's a good question. I mean, I think certainly. So it's got to be sometimes, It's like when I was brand new to this stuff, it's like, well, you kind of are an imposter at the beginning. And but that's anything. That's like any skill. You start not knowing not knowing shit, and you gotta do it to learn. So so there's just some part of it that I'd say, especially if you're new, that's like super, super normal.
What do you do if it's not going away?
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like if you've been in the field for a while, um, yeah, I mean, it just depends on the person, I think, because you were hitting on it that there could be unconscious stuff there that needs to be addressed. That has to do. I mean, generally, I got to say, most of the time, it's probably yes, it's a worth thing, but it's connected to enmeshment and codependency and feeling an exaggerated sense of responsibility for the well-being of someone else. And that which I think often goes back to relationships with your parents and enmeshment with them. So that could be addressed in a variety of ways. Uh, but the other thing I was thinking is, I said something earlier about how, well, like my framework, it seeks to address the whole being, and so I don't often feel lost because I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying these different entry points. So, for example, I did something with a client uh, it was like a somatic practice, and it was about feeling something deeply and not not doing a lot of thinking about it, but just staying present with the feeling. And so we went through this thing. It was really it was a really intense feeling to stay present with, and they did it. Uh, and then they reported in our next session that it wasn't beneficial. Like it actually was just really, really hard and painful, and some other things happened throughout the week that uh, it's like they continued to feel really sensitive and open, and like it wasn't good, you know. And I apologized for it because because that part I feel is my responsibility. It's like it was my choice to go in that direction, and I don't always know what's going to happen. And sometimes somebody could not be resourced enough. Either I think with awareness, either in terms of connection to awareness and ability to disidentify with a thing and all of that, that some things have a particular order, and the order is different for everybody. And so it's not always going to work the same way. And all of this is an experiment. And I think that that's maybe part of the informed consent process that I try and do with people, is to let them know this, that, and maybe I could be more clear about this now that I'm saying it out loud, that this relationship is an experiment, and all the things we're going to do are experiments, and we don't know exactly. Like maybe sometimes I do have a pretty good idea of what direction to go, but sometimes I don't, and we don't know. And what I don't know is how something's going to affect you ever. I don't know that. So I'm just going to do my best, and with the best intention possible, try to act as a guide and support somebody. But yeah, we I might go the wrong direction sometimes. And then I can be like, oh, okay, so that entry point, the somatic emotional entry point, that's not the one for this thing right now in this moment. So then we went a different direction, and we started focusing on expanding into awareness, and that actually was really helpful. So that's why I think having a whole being framework, it provides that flexibility to there's always something to try. And then also there's the recognition that not everyone's going to be a good fit
Yeah,
for me in my approach.
right. Right. And I think that's what I'm learning, and becoming more aware is that like, look, I'm not the right fit for everyone. I can't help everyone. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and like, someone might need a short-term therapy like ERP or something, and I'm not trained in that. And so um and to me that's like uh how do I say it? It's not I don't want to call it, it's not a band-aid. That's not right. But it's like treating the wound on a shallower level, maybe, which is necessary in order to get into the deeper things sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's
Yeah. I want to open up one more thing.
oh, okay.
Uh it's I'm going to contradict myself, right?
Oh, good.
So I remember because on the topic of imposter syndrome, I just thought of this. Uh, I remember in one of my classes they invited a guest who she worked with like teenagers, very very like trouble, like I think they're in jail or very troubled teenagers, among other things. And one of the students asked her like, does imposter syndrome ever go away? And she's like, oh no, that shit never goes away. So I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are. Maybe it doesn't go away. Maybe there's always some small part of like of us is like, crap, can I help this person? Maybe I'm not the right fit. Yeah, maybe there's always going to be a like a tiny, tiny thought of imposter self-doubt. And perhaps you just accept it and it's not a problem, right?
Yeah, I kind of like that too. I think that both things can be true, which is it would be the case for anything that we're talking about, anything that could potentially be healed. To me, it's like, well, a part of the healing process is really discovering experientially that this thing is not a problem. It's not actually a problem that you feel that. And and then yeah, maybe there's certain things you can do, deeper unconscious things you can address, and maybe it goes away completely, maybe it lightens up significantly, and doesn't go away. It's not about fixing it necessarily, which is funny, contradicts maybe like the whole conversation. Uh, but yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing about all this. It's like sometimes you can address what you're calling a problem, you can address it head on and actually heal it, and it'll go away. And then other times you just need to shift your identification with it and change your relationship to it and see that it's not a problem. It's like I said, it still comes up for me, particularly in couples therapy, and I think it's because I mean it is because I have less experience, but I think it's also the context of couples therapy, which is a really interesting context where it's like two people are in front of me that want me to agree with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and inevitably I'm going to piss off both of them.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And that triggers a lot of stuff for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I could see in the moment when the imposter syndrome feeling comes up, and then um that's when for me I'm practicing opening up into spacious awareness and acceptance of it, and it's not a problem.
Nice.
So yeah, I don't think it has to go away. I think if it's really intense to the point that it affects your functioning, or you're having really intense emotional reactions around it, I do think that can for sure get better if certain things are addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's all I got.
Okay. Yeah, let's end here. Thanks for listening, everybody. I love you. Goodbye.